Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of 30 Albums for 30 Years, 1964 through 1994, where we take a look and a listen to the most impactful albums between those years, and we do it chronologically by release date. So the plan is 30 albums per year for 30 years, 900 albums. Kind of a crazy project. Let's see if I make it that far. I am your host, Jay Sweet. Today we will be checking out Sam Cooke's Ain't That Good News. And yes, in fact, it is good news because it's a great record released February 1964 on RCA Victor Records. Also, a few announcements. This is our 7th episode, so the podcast is doing well. At this point, we have somewhere between 160 and 170 listens. And we are now being listened to by people in 11 countries. So I want to welcome Portugal, Costa Rica, and England. We have some listeners there. It's nice to have you aboard and spread the news. Tell your friends and feel free to reach out to me through our social media outlets. Also, wanted to mention on Tuesday I had the unique experience of interviewing Stanley Clarke, the bass wizard, one of my personal favorites. It was a great interview. He was a great guy. So you may know Stanley from his solo records, his work with Return to Forever, the Clark Duke Project, Animal Logic, all the many film scores that he has been a part of. So look forward to that interview on a future special edition of the podcast. So without further ado, let's get into it. Sam Cooke's Ain't That Good News. Enjoy the program. All right, so let's learn a little bit about Sam Cooke. Singer and songwriter Sam Cooke was one of the key founders of soul music. He came to the style by merging gospel music with R&B and delivered the sound with one of the most pure and most recognizable voices in American pop music. Cooke was born in Clarksdale, Mississippi, 1931. He was one of 8 children born to Reverend Charles Cooke, who worked as a Baptist minister. In 1933, Sam Cooke and his family moved to Chicago, and after singing in the church as a youth, Cooke joined the group, the Soul Stirrers gospel group, the Soul Stirrers, and began releasing music on Specialty Records by 1951. Now, by 1956, Sam Cooke recorded a pop soul number called Lovable under the pseudonym Dale Cooke. He chose to change his name to avoid offending the Soul Stirrers, but the release did stir things up with the group and the label, who were displeased with his direction to sing non-sacred music. After an argument with Specialty Records head Art Rupe, he was released from the Soul Stirrers. Cooke then added an E to the end of his last name and began recording more pop-related materials. By 1957, Sam Cooke gained widespread attention when he released You Send Me on Keen Records. The song was a number 1 hit on the Billboard charts, and the B-side of the single was Summertime from Gershwin's Porgy and Bess, which also topped the R&B charts. In 1960, Sam Cooke signed a lucrative deal with RCA Records and released such hits as Chain Gang, Cupid, Another Saturday Night, Twisting the Night Away, and others. In 1961, he started his own label, SAR Record, S-A-R, and continued to release singles and albums. Okay, so that brings us to 1964 and the release of the album Ain't That Good News, which featured 5 charting singles, and it reached as high as number 34 on the Billboard charts. Ain't That Good News was Cooke's final release during his lifetime, but the events surrounding the record was not good news at all. For starters, Cooke's first marriage to singer and dancer Dolores Cooke had fallen apart and the couple divorced in 1958. That same year, Cooke had a car crash that killed his chauffeur and hospitalized the singer. A year later, Dolores dies in a car crash as well. In 1963, a few months before the release of the album, Cooke's youngest child, Vincent, drowns in a pool at only 18 months old. And then, after its release on December 11th, 1964, Sam Cooke's life ends when he was shot and killed at a hotel in South Central Los Angeles by hotel manager Bertha Franklin. Now, there is a great deal of speculation regarding his murder. Franklin claims that she shot Cooke thinking he was an intruder when he began knocking on her door and screaming, "Where's the girl?" He was looking for a woman who had accompanied him to a hotel who he thought had stolen from him. Some have suggested that Cooke, who was politically outspoken regarding race issues, was killed as part of a racist conspiracy to silence his anger. And others have suggested that Cooke's manager, Alan Klein, had some role in his death. But there is no real evidence to suggest that that was true. Regardless, Cooke's death was ruled as a justifiable homicide, and no one was held responsible for killing one of the great American singers and songwriters of his generation. Sam Cooke was only 33 years old at the time of his death. After he passed, his popularity continued to grow. Posthumously, 2 singles, Shake and more notable, A Change Is Going to Come, were released a month after he was laid to rest. The masterpiece, A Change Is Gonna Come, quickly became an anthem for the civil rights movement and showcased what seemed to be a new direction for Sam Cooke. During his short life, Cooke had 29 top 40 hits and helped to inspire a generation of soul singers and political activists. Sam Cooke was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986 for his solo works and again in 1989 for his work with the Soul Stirrers. As a result of his life and career, a change did come. All right, so let's put the needle on the record and get started. Track number 1, Ain't That Good News, the title track to the album, is a reworking of a spiritual which further showcases Sam Cooke's gospel roots. Cooke rewrote the lyrics, thus changing the concept from reflecting a singer's faith in Jesus to representing the singer's faith and devotion to a woman. It turns out, though, that as a husband, Cooke was rarely faithful or devoted. Nonetheless, the up-tempo number is heavily orchestrated and includes horns and even the usage of a banjo, which is rare for a soul tune. Some notable session musicians in the ensemble include guitarists Renee Hall, Howard Roberts, and John Pisano. The song was a hit and charted at number 11. Track number 3 is Good Times, a personal favorite of mine and another fantastic track written by Sam Cooke. The tune peaked at number 11 on the Billboard charts, and the song is notable for its orchestration, which incorporates acoustic guitars and marimbas. The song is a good time for sure, so in the words of Sam Cooke, let's get into the groove and let the good times roll. The 4th track is Rome Wasn't Built in a Day. On the tune, Sam Cooke pleads with a woman to give him time for their love to grow. Take notice of the well-placed horn lines, the rhythmic layering, and the vocal backgrounds that are included within the arrangement. This next track is an absolute classic, Another Saturday Night, Another Saturday Night is one of Cooke's most popular tunes. The song is about a guy who just got paid, and it's Saturday night. He wants to party, but needs someone to go and hang out with. Sam Cooke wrote the song while touring in England, during which he was staying at a hotel where no female guests were allowed. The tune reached number 10 on the Billboard charts, Another Saturday Night. The final track of side 1 is Tennessee Waltz, a remake of a country classic. The tune was written by Pee Wee King and Red Stewart of the Golden West Cowboys in 1946. The song was first recorded by the group in 1947, and then in 1950, singer Patti Page released her own version of the tune. Patti Page's version had an incredible 30-week run at the top of the charts, and as of 1974, her version was the biggest selling single ever in Japan. So if you get a chance, I would recommend listening to Patti Page's version in comparison to Sam Cooke's version. Cooke plays the song at a double time, making the tempo faster, and he completely reinterprets the tune. Tennessee Waltz was the last single Cooke would release during his lifetime. His version reached number 35 on the charts. Now take notice that all of the songs on side 1 of the album are up-tempo. Okay, it's now time to flip the record, drop the needle on side 2, and track 1 is A Change Is Gonna Come. Now forgive me for this rather lengthy submission, but the song is that impactful that it requires some detailed background. Released in 1964, A Change Is Gonna Come became an anthem of the civil rights movement. It's believed that Cooke wrote the song after his wife and a few of his friends were turned away from a whites-only Holiday Inn motel in Shreveport, Louisiana, after making a reservation. When his party was told that he could not stay at the motel upon arrival, Sam Cooke was furious. He called for the manager and made a big scene. His brother-in-law, who was fearful for Sam's life, convinced Cooke to leave. Police then met Sam Cooke and his entourage after arriving at another hotel, and they were arrested for disturbing the peace. The story hit the New York Times, with a headline reading, "Negro bandleader held in Shreveport." Now at the time, Sam Cooke was a big star, particularly within the black community, and the news of his arrest sparked outrage and anger. Cooke's decision to write A Change Is Gonna Come was inspired by Bob Dylan's impactful protest song Blowing in the Wind. Now, a few months after the release, Sam Cooke was shot and killed in a motel. In 2019, Cooke was posthumously awarded the key to Shreveport. The lyrics are inspiring and present both a sense of sadness, but also a sense of hope and inspiration. And the song is as relevant now as it was in 1964. Guitarist Renee Hall handled the arrangement and the orchestration of the tune. Now, Sam Cooke gave Hall no specific instructions on how to shape the creation. This was rare for Sam Cooke, who was a control freak when it came to his music. Understanding the seriousness of the lyrics and the song's possible impact on pop culture, Renee Hall spent a great deal of time ironing out the arrangement characteristics. The orchestration includes sweeping strings, lush horn lines, and some rather interesting percussive elements. The use of the French horn in the recording is particularly effective in creating an overall sense of seriousness and sadness. Cooke's intended drummer for the track was so intimidated by the orchestration and the classical elements that were included that he refused to record the piece. Luckily, drummer Earl Palmer, a session master, was recording next door, and he was asked to fill in. Palmer's rhythmic figures are critical to the song's overall feel. A Change Is Gonna Come is as significant now as it was when it was released, and it did help inspire change. But, of course, more change needs to come. Okay, so at this point of the record, a major shift occurs. We are no longer offered any more of Sam Cooke's originals, as the singer is now being showcased performing heavily arranged pop ballads. Although I would have preferred hearing more soul numbers, Cooke is an incredible interpreter of standard materials. Track 2 is Falling in Love. Falling in Love was written by New Orleans native Harold Batiste. The track is a string-laden ballad with horn backgrounds. Lyrically, it's a sad reflection of someone in love who is not fully loved back. Track number 3 of side 2 is Home When Shadows Fall. The song is an often recorded ballad written by Harry Clarkson and Peter Van Steeden in 1931. The piece includes heavy arrangements and orchestral characteristics that I personally believe distract somewhat from Cooke's beautiful voice. Home When the Shadows Fall. This next track is No Second Time, written by Clifton White. The song is a breakup tune in which the narrator describes how he has no more tolerance after his loved walked out and left him behind. The arrangement offers a slightly more balanced blend of swing, soul, and classically influenced orchestration. The final track of the original LP is The Riddle Song, a traditional lullaby dating back to 15th century England. The song is also known under the title I Gave My Love a Cherry. Sam Cooke does a fantastic job on the tune, and the final lyric, a baby when it's sleeping, there's no crying, is particularly haunting when you realize that Cooke would be gone soon after the release. All right, my friends, it's time to lift the needle, gently remove the record from the player, put it back in its sleeve, put the dust cover back on it, and place it back on your shelf. Because we made it to the end, and we're better for it. So in conclusion, Ain't That Good News serves as a critical work because of the political nature and impact of A Change Is Gonna Come, and because it represents a great artist during their prime, and also during the final months of Sam Cooke's life. Cooke's impact on soul and American music is well represented on the record Ain't That Good News, which reached number 34 on the Billboard charts. Now, Sam Cooke's death left a tremendous void, but through his recordings, he will never be forgotten. And that is good news. So once again, I want to thank you for listening to the podcast. It's an absolute joy to present it to you. Now, I pre-record these, and I've only been at it now for less than 2 weeks. And in that time, we've already increased our listenership tremendously, and even now have listeners in Norway and North Macedonia. So I want to welcome you to the podcast. Please keep listening, And if you like what you hear, please share this information. Check us out on our website, 30albumsfor30years.com, or email me at 30albumsfor30years@gmail. Also, please check out my book, The History of American Music, 1750 to 1950, An Origin Story, which is available from Kendall Hunt Publishing. Thanks again, and let's keep the music alive. All right, thanks. Thanks for sticking around for the bonus section of the podcast, the Jay Plays bonus section, in which I reinterpret the song, the Riddle Song, also known as I Gave My Love a Cherry. Tried to keep a similar kind of soulful feel with this one. I'm playing some guitar, a little bit of keyboard, some bass, of course, and added a drum track to this one. So again, these aren't high production things, just kind of fun for me to do. So I hope you enjoy my interpretation of the Riddle Song.